Namaskar. Hello and welcome to P Guru's channel. I'm your host Sri Iyer. This is a special transmission that I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about International Monetary Fund and why is it that it is always the one that countries go to when they are in deep economic crisis or in financial crisis. All that and more. First of all, we all should understand that Bretton Woods in the United States was a place where there was an agreement that took place in 1944 where the United States and its pegging of the dollar with gold was considered as a reference standard for the whole world. Of course, Germany was still at war, Japan was still at war with the Allies, but they figured that they were winning the war. Russia was part of that meeting, and they figured that, well, this is going to happen. And a consequence of that was the IMF. And the founders were the famous economist John Maynard Keynes and another official from the US Treasury Department. These two were the founders, and then of course things started evolving from there. I'm going to start telling you a little bit about what kind of voting rights different countries have, what kind of a structure IMF has, how much influence each country has, and also what is special drawing rights or SDR. So these are all the things that we are going to look at because we keep hearing this. India went to IMF for loans in the 90s. Now, of course, Pakistan is practically at their doorstep. 20 odd times they have, approached IMF for loans. More significant is today, who is having the largest debt? The number is going to be surprising you. The name is also going to be surprising you. So I'm going to share with you a very small slide deck that delves a little bit deeper into the IMF. Here we go. As of September 2023, the IMF has lending commitments of around $287 billion or special drawing rights of $218 billion with 94 countries. Argentina has the outstanding debt of $40 billion, 902% of its quota. See, the quota is fixed based on how much you have contributed into the fund, and Argentina has 902%, 9 times what it puts in. The other large borrowers are Egypt 19.6 billion, Ukraine 9.8 billion, Pakistan 7.84 billion, and Ecuador 6.86 billion. After Russia invaded Ukraine, the IMF approved a 15.6 billion extended arrangement for Ukraine in March 2023, which is part of a total of US 122 billion international support package for Ukraine through early 2027. So they are going to be getting a certain amount of billions in exchange for Ukraine standing on behalf of the NATO. That's the only way you can look at that. China and emerging powers, what are the roles that these are playing? I think I missed one slide. I'm going to go back to the first slide. Okay, so this is what I missed. I apologize. The key functions of IMF are, it has 190 countries. IMF regularly monitors the economic and financial policies of its member countries. The IMF provides loans to countries facing problems paying for necessary imports or servicing their debt payments. You see, this is where Pakistan comes in. The major contributors are US, which is a founding member and the largest financial contributor. I'm going to go through quickly some numbers so you get a feel for who's put in so much, who is put in how much into the kitty of the IMF. The US contributes 117 billion to the IMF quota of close to 17.46% in terms of numbers. In addition, the US has contributed 44 billion to funds at the IMF that supplement quota resources. See, this is a different category. We can not worry about that right now because the fundamental thing is how much people or how much each country is putting into the IMF. These numbers will surprise you. Japan has 6.47%, United Kingdom 4.23%, France around 4.23%, and then China 6%, India 2.75%, and Pakistan a paltry 0.43%. That is their contribution into the IMF fund. Now, what is happening is China's influence is spreading much more than its 6%. Why do we say that? In the recent decades, China and other fast developing countries have shifted the balance of global economic power from the US and Europe. China is playing a larger role in the IMF. Chinese staff now have a larger presence within the IMF, and in 2016, the IMF included the renminbi, the Chinese yuan, in the basket of currencies that make up the special drawing rights. Again, I'll explain what the SDR means in just a moment. Select policy issues for the US Congress is the Congress has options to directly influence policies, directing the US representatives to advance and vote for specific policies. This the US Congress can do. Things that perhaps the US Congress should consider: how can the US work within the IMF to assist Ukraine and limit Russia's engagement with the global economy? Are developing countries turning to China and other borrowers instead of the IMF? If so, why? This is the New Development Bank, or the BRICS Bank, it used to be called. Now it's called the New Development Bank. That's the question. So sometimes, this is the challenge they have. So if people don't come to us for money, then doesn't our influence decrease? Because when IMF gives loan, it also mandates some conditions for the country that is accepting the loan that country has to follow. How should the US seek to influence the IMF's engagement with China as China's role in the global economy continues to increase? See, one side, China has all its economic problems and the other problems, but its influence in entities like IMF is going up. And you can see from the SDR, the special drawing rights. Remember, I told you the percentage of ownership. Now look at the SDR allocations. What are they and how are they used? The SDR, or special drawing rights, are international reserve assets created by the IMF to supplement the official reserves of member countries. The value of an SDR is based on a basket of 5 currencies. What are the 5 currencies? The dollar, the euro, the pound, the Japanese yen, and now the renminbi. Now, if you look at the percentages of how much the SDR is based on these, if you look at the percentage for each of these currencies, there is very interesting revelation. This is why we keep talking about dollar as a reference currency. The dollar is 42%. The euro is 31%. The pound is 8%. The Japanese yen is 8%. But look at China's number, 11%. It's the latest one to the game, and they already have a much higher number. It is, in fact, after euro, number 3. So you can see that currencies like the pound are losing their relevance, and plus, they don't have any more geographical heft that they used to have. So a lot of adjustments are happening. Whether the IMF is going to give the loan to Pakistan or not, who knows? Maybe China is the country that is telling the IMF to give the loan to Pakistan to get some sort of a respectability. Because if IMF gives the loan, 190 countries are approving that one way or the other. Because if you look at the percentages that I told you of the ownership, how much they have put into the IMF funds, the voting rights is more or less the same percentage. In other words, if India has put in 2.75%, its voting rights are around 2.64 or something like that, 2.63, something very close to the percentage of money that they have put into the IMF. So this kind of gives a legitimacy for a country that gets a loan. They say, oh, it's IMF has given the loan, therefore it must be okay, that they must have done the due diligence and so on and so forth. So there should be no issues with us donating the money. So at this point of time, the world is at a very critical juncture. Will the Ukraine problem be solved? And if US is not going to give the money and US is telling the IMF to give the money, essentially what the United States is doing is it is making its problem the IMF's problem, the 190 countries' problem. You get the point there, right? Somehow everybody is saying that yes, it is okay for the IMF to give this $120 billion. It's a lot of money over a period of 5 years, and much of it will come back to the United States. Why? Because of the arms and armaments. In the NATO bloc, US is the main arms producer, and things are going towards a precarious end right now, because the US Congress, which is Republican controlled, is asking a lot of inconvenient questions of the United States administration, that is the Biden administration, and they don't seem to have the answers. Therefore, the funding has been looked at much more closely. Ukraine is running short of ammunition, and so is Israel. So new alignments might happen. Whether other countries will get sucked in, just providing these arms and armament, is something that needs to be seen. Also, it means that if there's a new theater of operations, who will be supplying the arms and armaments for that theater? That also has to be seen. So thanks for watching. I have a question here from Magnet Rangaji. Let me see if I can answer that. First off, we have a new member, Raghavendra Rao Balaji Rao ji. Thank you so much for becoming YouTube member. And Magnet Ranga has a question. He wants to know, the corollary question would be, Bharat's equation with these world bodies waning. Recently, some of them commented about internal matters of Bharat. Is it about Modi government? Rangaji, like I told you, Bharat's investment into IMF is 2.75%. And I'm sure if Bharat says that, okay, I will double it and I make it 5.5%, I'm sure they'll agree, as long as, Bharat also stipulates that, look, you need to make rupee a part of the special drawing rights also. And if that happens, then that means Indian currency, Indian rupee, will be the 6th currency to join the SDR club. After all, China was the last member. Remember, China's investment is 6%, but in the SDR, it is 11%. And I'm sure if India comes in, India also might ask for a higher number in the SDR. So all these arrangements and alignments could take place. Certainly, India is able to hold its own. The more India exports, the stronger the Indian currency. Indian rupee is somehow still kept undervalued. And we have done these calculations in various ways. If you remember, we have had guests come in and talk about this. 30 rupees to a dollar is something that is very fair. The last person who mentioned that was Professor MD Nalapat. And I think India is headed towards that direction. Let's wait and see how it goes. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to click on the bell button for notifications. Namaskar.